talking about a place that has influences of multiple empires. Georgia is influenced by the Byzantine Empire, the Roman Empire, the Persian Empire, but also by the Russian Empire. Georgia is a country that is situated on the crossroads of Europe and Asia. What was your first impression when you thought of going to Georgia?
The city, Tbilisi, was so clean and so green. You have the glass bridge, which is one of the attractions there, Bridge of Peace.
This country has a lot of history, but the most unique historic thing of this country is its wine.
In that whole region, wine production started 8,000 years back. The tradition is that you never have wine alone. Like you just don't go and have wine just because you want alcohol. Wine is meant to be shared.
I didn't know Georgia is a great place to paraglide also.
And the place you want to go, if you want to ski or if you want to even enjoy snow, is Kazbegi and Godavari.
So would you say 7 days is enough to explore Georgia? Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life. For this episode, Sunila and I are together sitting in our home and talking about a place that has influences of multiple empires. If you recall, we did an episode on Istanbul some time ago. And if you recall, Istanbul is influenced by the Byzantine Empire, the Persian Empire, and the Roman Empire. Today we are going to talk about Georgia. And Georgia, similar to Istanbul, is influenced by the Byzantine Empire, the Roman Empire, the Persian Empire, but also by the Russian Empire. Now, Georgia is a country that is situated on the crossroads of Europe and Asia. It is a country where there is a lot of tradition, but there's a lot of modernity. There are the mountains, the Caucasus Mountains, that are in the north of Georgia. And after the dissolution of the USSR in 1991, Georgia has been an independent nation. And since 1991, it has charted its own growth path. So Sunila had the opportunity of going to Georgia very recently for a work trip. And my wife Heta and I have decided that our daughter Raya, who's 2 months old, her first country to tick off is also going to be Georgia. So instead of just sitting down with Sunila and creating an itinerary for just the three of us, I was like, why not do an episode on Georgia so that we can, of course, have you, our listeners and viewers, tuned in, but also find out what Georgia really has to offer. Now, my research tells me that from India, there are airlines like Fly Dubai, Air Arabia, Qatar Airways, Turkish Airlines, Azerbaijan Airways that fly to Georgia. But now let's dive into Georgia with Sunila and find out what this country really has to offer. So, Sunila, Georgia, okay? What was your first impression when you thought of going to Georgia? And did it live up to its expectations? Did it surpass its expectations? Or sometimes it cannot surpass expectations. So, what was your trip like?
Neil, the trip was amazing. I mean, my expectations were like I thought it would be similar to Azerbaijan because that's one of its neighbors. So I was sure that, and all the photos I'd seen a lot of natural beauty.
Yeah.
Expected that. In a lot of ways, it did surpass my expectations in a way. I know my first feeling when I landed and like maybe from the airport to the hotel, you kind of make your first impression during that time, right?
Yeah.
Whenever you're traveling, was just that the city, Tbilisi, was so clean and so green. And there was something special about it. I couldn't put my finger on it till about like the third day. That's when I realized that Tbilisi as a location is very special. You mentioned the Caucasus Mountains, and it's surrounded by these mountains. So it's
Yeah.
like as if the mountains are just holding it together
Cradling
in a
it or
like
something,
cradling
yeah.
it or something like that. Because wherever you stand, you see the mountains all around you, and then you have the Kura River which runs right through the city, and you have the left bank and the right bank. The right bank's the old city, the left is the new city, and so much contrast everywhere you go between the old and the new. But in a way, it's kind of married in all together really well. Like it's not jarring. Like it just blends from the old to the new very quickly. And I thought that was really special about Tbilisi.
So, how long was your trip?
So I was there almost a week, a little short of a week. Being a work trip, it wasn't that long, but I did try to tick off everything that I could. In fact, to the extent that I kind of checked into a hotel one day at 1 in the night because I was
You
going
just wanted to
around.
do everything.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I see everything so that when we come back, we can plan things better and include things that would suit our people
So, would
more.
you say 7 days is enough to explore Georgia?
I would say so about a week. It depends on how much time you have, of course, and what you want to do. So, if you want to relax, you could spend 3, 4 days just in if you like the beach, you could go to Batumi and spend 4, 5 nights there easily. So, in Tbilisi, at least 3 to 4 nights. And then again, the mountains also you can go in and stay. I would say about 7 to 10 days is a good time to really cover Georgia.
Now, you mentioned Tbilisi, that is the capital, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned another place called Batumi.
Yes.
So, should we start with Tbilisi or should we start with Batumi? What do you
I
think?
think let's start with Tbilisi because it is the capital and that's going to be the point of entry for most people. Yes, you can fly into Batumi as well. I flew out of Batumi. So
Okay.
instead of coming back to Tbilisi, it cut my journey, which was nice. But I think let's start with Tbilisi
Okay. So,
because,
what was Tbilisi like?
like I said initially, very clean, very green. You have this beautiful old city, so reminiscent of Europe. So, when you go to a place and you said it's on the border of Asia and Europe, and you go in and then you can see these sloping roofs, the red tiled roofs everywhere, the old city, the streets, very lively, very exciting, beautiful place to walk in. And then there are so many things to do. And on the other hand, you have these ultra modern structures. You have the glass bridge, which is one of the attractions there, Bridge of Peace. It was made by an Italian architect. It's quite stunning in the day,
It looks
but
beautiful, yes.
at night it just sparkles.
Oh,
And
really?
I think one of my favorite things to do was to go and stand on the bridge at night. Like literally just stand there because, of course, you're on the river and then you can see these boats going around. So, for those who want to enjoy the river, they were taking a boat ride out there. But there were buskers singing, there were people like, different kinds of music going on. Someone was singing jazz, someone else was singing something else, someone was singing the local, in the local dialects. So, it was a lot of fun. People were just crossing from the old to the new all the time. And, for me that was really really special. So Tbilisi it's amazing. I think the bridge is a great starting point because from there you can enter the old city. And again, the old city, I had a chance to walk there in the day and in the evening. Both were nice, but I think the evenings are really nice out there. There were some restaurants that are open 24 hours, so you
Okay.
cannot go hungry in Tbilisi ever. Walking through some of the streets, there were like suddenly there would be something interesting. So, two things I want to mention here. One is the statue of what is called a tamada. So a
Okay.
tamada is someone who is a toast master, and there is this cute little statue right in the middle of the road. And the Georgian tradition, and we'll talk about wine later because that's important to Georgia. But the tradition is that you never have wine alone. Like you just don't go and have wine just because you want alcohol. Wine is meant to be shared with friends, with family. And the way they do it, I saw this in action in a Georgian restaurant that I went to with the folklore dances and shows. And the table next to us, so my guide said, "Can you see what's happening? Pay attention." So a person stood up and he was the toast master and he in turn was toasting everyone on the table. And then again, after some time, with the second round of wine, he was again toasting the other people. So that is what they do. And the person who's toasting is called a tamada, and they have a little statue of the person there because you'll see this everywhere you go that culture is very important to Georgians and it kind of reflects in the city, like the statue of Mother of Georgia. So Tamada was another thing which it's not just a statue, it's showing you a part of their culture when you're walking in the old city. So I thought that was really, really interesting.
Awesome. I think that's a great start to Tbilisi. Now, in the research that I have been doing, one for our episode and also for my trip, there's a statue out there,
Yes.
right? And the statue is a very unique statue because I think there's a jug or a mug in the
One hand,
lady's
yeah,
hand
yeah,
and there's a sword in
yeah.
the other. What's the story behind this statue? And is it like a viewing point or something that you go up a hill and see it? Like I've seen images of it, but you've seen it in person. So I'd like to hear your perspective.
Yeah, like everywhere else in Tbilisi and Georgia, the contrast. So you have the wine in one hand and the sword in other. The statue is called the Mother of Georgia. So it's symbolic. There is no real person, But again, the culture of Georgia comes in here. It's right on top of a mountain, and the statue was earlier made in wood or something, and then they thought it's going to, burn down. So they covered it with aluminium, and now it is made in aluminium. It's about 20 meters high or so, and right on top of a hill. Now, to go up there, you can take a cable car and go up there, and when you go up, you get a beautiful view of Tbilisi city, and even at the top, you have the view of the Tbilisi city. And the whole story is that the jug, which you mentioned in one hand, is actually wine. So it's symbolism, right? So they're saying that to our friends, we welcome you with wine, but to our enemies, we have the sword. So that's the whole story of the Mother of Georgia statue. And it was a nice ride. Like you can take it right in the middle of the city. You have this cable car. There's a beautiful park there, and you go in and. You buy your tickets, get into the cable car, you're going up. When I got off, it reminded me of Russia, and of course Georgia has its history with Russia, because there were people there, like how you see in our old movies, Hindi movies, Georgian guys. And one of the old Georgian guys, he had this instrument in his hand, and he saw us, and he started singing old Hindi songs. So it was like crazy. He just wouldn't stop. And then, of course, he would wait for the next batch of Indians, and then you can tip him if you like. So it was really pleasant to listen to old Hindi songs, like really old Hindi songs when you're standing there, like maybe from the 60s and the 70s, going on. So that was quite interesting, and it was a lot of fun.
What was the weather like?
So the weather was actually really pleasant, getting into summer now. So yes, if you love the summer and you think you're either going to be in the mountains or on the beach, then go in July, August. But otherwise, avoid it because it can get really hot, and it is just completely choco-block with Europeans holidaying.
Yeah.
So I feel that for Georgia, if you skip those 2 months, you can go anytime else. Any other time in the year is great. When I went in, we had temperatures ranging from anything from 20 to like 30. When I went to Kazbegi, it was 16, so that was like suddenly really pleasant. But in the city, it was about 25 or so, which was nice.
I've also heard that Georgia is one of the cheapest places in the European and the Asian continent to actually go skiing or snowboarding. Just because one, they get really nice snow. And did you see any snow? Like
I did.
even this season?
Even now.
So if I'm going in October, you think we'll get any snow?
October is a little tricky because you can't ski there, but you should be able to see some snow remaining on the snow mountain tops. If you really want to enjoy the snow, then go by Feb or March, because from December it'll start snowing, and this after December or in January, February, March, even April should be a good time to catch some snow or for skiing out there. And the place you want to go, if you want to ski or if you want to even enjoy snow, is Kazbegi and Godavari. So Kazbegi is about a 3 to 4 hour journey from Tbilisi, and on the way you can have a lot of stops. So if you have a big group and you have a coach and you're not fond of changing hotels again and again, you can actually do it in a day. I did it in a day, but you have to start early, and it's a really full packed day. But you can do it. But I would suggest staying in Kazbegi or Godavari. There are lots of hotels there. So Godavari, to put it in simple words, it's like Interlaken, if I can say so.
Okay.
If that can
That's a
you
big
can relate to.
compliment.
Yes, I loved it. It was amazing. And what was even more amazing was to see Indian restaurants everywhere, like everywhere. I thought I would see them only in Tbilisi, but in Godavari, I didn't go to one, but in Godavari and even in Kazbegi, there were these small little Indian restaurants in all the places. In Godavari, when you land, you just go up. There is a point called the Godavari Panorama, which I really like quite a lot. So it's like this almost circle in between a semicircle and a circular kind of a big wall, and you have frescoes on that explaining all about Georgia and everything, and the arches there, beautiful views all around. So you can still see the snow on the mountain tops here. Everything else was lush green, like those green mountains that we are so used to in Switzerland and Austria, and people were paragliding here.
Oh,
So it was a beautiful sight. Like I just stood there and I was for some time just taking in the views. It was amazing.
so a few weeks ago we did an episode with our friend Sajid, who's
Uh-huh.
an like an expert
Yes.
paraglider, and of course, he mentioned a lot of places, but I didn't know Georgia is a great
Yeah.
place to paraglide also. So, Sunila, you mentioned Indian restaurants, and given a love for food, I'm sure you didn't have food at the Indian restaurants, and that's what you also mentioned. So, what was your food experience like? What is the food of Georgia?
So Neil, I did go to one Indian restaurant, one to check it out and see how the what the differences are. But what I really enjoyed, like you said, given the love for food, is the local food, and there's really a lot to choose here. And the good part is there is a lot of vegetarian options also. I did mention to one of the Georgians that part of it reminds me of Turkish food, and he got really offended. He said, "No, this is Georgian food. Like, don't call it Turkish." So I said, "Okay, fine." But in the Georgian restaurant that I went to, one of the traditional ones, and I saw that again and again. So if they know you're coming and they reserve a table for you, the salads are already laid out when you go. In a way, it was nice because sometimes if you reach when you're really hungry, you have something to start nibbling on. So the salads were mainly, there's a lot of walnut production there, and walnuts that are mixed with beetroots, walnuts with carrots, walnuts with spinach. It's called khali salads with a P, the pea salad. And then these are like shaped in nice round balls and kept on the table when you go in. Eggplant with some hummus or cheese or other stuff kept there. So you start your meal with a salad always. And then there was a Georgian salad with the way we know salads with tomatoes, cucumber, beans, and all of that. There's also a bread that is brought to you, and it's called a puri, like we have a puri.
A regular
Not,
puri,
yeah, I
but
mean,
it's
it's
not a
called,
puri.
no, it's more like a naan, thicker bread. So it can be hot, it can be cold, but they do start the meal with that. What I really liked was their next dish called a khacha puri. And a khacha puri is really popular, and whoever goes has to try this in
Okay, what
Georgia.
is khacha puri?
Khacha puri, again, like puri is a bread. So khacha puri is like a stuffed paratha, it's a stuffed bread. It can be vegetarian, in which case it is stuffed with beans. And the first place, again, when we went, that's when I looked at the menu and asked him how many items are coming because we won't be able to finish all of those. But it's shared. So they'll bring in a big one and they'll serve you like a pizza slice cut out of it. So it's stuffed with beans, the vegetarian version, lobiani they call it. Then the next one is stuffed with cheese. So imeruli. And the cheese here, one thing I kept noticing, even in outside Tbilisi, not in the city, but when you're going towards other places, was how many cows there were, and very similar to India. So I was like, wow, this is just like home. But there's a lot of good cheese, a lot of good milk, and you see that in the food everywhere. That's when you kind of start connecting. So Imeruli is the one that everyone just has to try. It's a cheese khachapuri, which I think maybe that's the second best, because the other one, if you do eat eggs, is what is known as the Ajarian khachapuri. Now,
Okay.
Ajara is the region of Batumi, that whole area is called there, and Ajara is from where the Ajarian khachapuri comes in. It's quite heavy. They have small, large portions. If you have someone to share, it's the best thing to order. But they say Georgian people can finish a whole thing by themselves. I found it difficult to really finish it, but it was heavy. So it's shaped like a round boat, if I can call it, with the two ends. And inside the bread, you have cheese, and they plop in one egg yolk. So the way to eat it is to mix the whole thing and then keep taking a piece of the bread, dip it into the khachapuri, and enjoy it. The other thing that I think also I really liked was King Khali. King Khali is nothing but dumplings. So we kept seeing they are shaped a little differently. They're actually more shaped like our modaks, the modaks that we have here rather than dumplings. And then again, there were options with cheese, options with like some vegetables inside, mushrooms or meat. And
Yeah.
the meat ones were the best, but that is something that you will keep seeing
But they are
everywhere.
juicy inside, right?
Yes, but they do have a meat inside, and they are quite juicy. And you can order, say, five or in multiples, but the smallest portion is about five. One more thing I liked in Georgia, and everywhere I went, that kind of became my favorite thing to do, is to order homemade lemonade.
Mm.
They do have bottles of lemonade, which were also interesting because they had different flavors which we've never had before. But the homemade lemonade was the best, and it was different in every restaurant,
It's
but it was good.
sweeter, right?
It wasn't really sweeter, but it had mint and basil and all kinds of things. In some places, it was a little more yellow, little thicker. I don't know what they do. Maybe the lemons, I think, are a little bit, like sweet limes halfway between an orange and a lemon, and that makes it special. So I really enjoyed the homemade lemonade everywhere.
I
Yeah,
personally think that the dumpling dish or the
yeah,
modak-esque
yeah,
dish that you mentioned with the cheese filling or the meat
yeah,
filling and the bread dish which has the egg cracked and then you mix
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
I foresee myself having those two quite a lot because although they won't like it, it is very similar to a pita in Istanbul that you get, which is this long kind of pizza bread, and then there's an egg cracked, and you have to break it on one point. You have to mix it with the egg, and you have to have it. So that was the food. Okay. Now Georgia has a lot of history, and when I was researching, like similar to the English alphabet, the Georgian alphabet is maybe like one of the only few alphabets that are left in the world. And the Georgian alphabet, like how we have in English 26 letters, the Georgian alphabet has about 33 letters, is what I found out. And the script is also very different and it has evolved through the centuries. So, of course, this country has a lot of history. But the most unique historic thing of this country is its wine, right? And you mentioned earlier in the podcast where it is one of the oldest wine regions in the world.
Yes.
So, tell us about Georgian wine.
Neil, how old do you think Georgian wine is? Like, how old do you think wine production would be?
I don't know. I can't put a number on it. I could just say like a few hundred years or a few
So,
centuries. I don't know.
you can extend that a little and say a few thousand years
Okay.
because, the current studies that they've done and they discovered some tannins and the remnants that were found puts it back to a staggering 8,000 years. So they're saying that wine was made in Georgia 8,000 years, which puts it like before everyone else. Maybe Armenia can contest that, but in that whole region, wine production started 8,000 years back.
Wow.
And why it's special is the way they made it. So I went to two wineries, and that's what you do. So from Tbilisi, when you go east, you can go to Kakheti, which is the wine producing region. And close to Kakheti, since we are speaking of that, is also a Bodbe monastery, which is really pretty and it's a nice place to visit. And Signagi, which is the city of love. So these are two places that you would end up visiting. Signagi has beautiful cafes that you can just sit in, enjoy the view, take a walking tour through the city, look at different things in the city, the fortress, and all of that. In fact, I met someone who reads your newsletters out there in Signagi. So that
Really?
was interesting. They were visiting from somewhere outside India and uh, everyone they looked like Indians. So we started talking, and then she said, "Oh, Veena, what I know, I read Neil's newsletters." So that felt really nice out there. And then we went and visited the winery. So coming back to wine, they make wines in something called a quarry. So a quarry, if you can imagine, is like this big clay pot, like the Greek amphoras or the Italian big amphoras. They bury it in the ground and they don't wash the grapes before they put it in.
Okay.
So they say that it's all bio and it's made, so they don't use insecticides or pesticides. And they say that the skin of the grape has a natural yeast like substance which helps it to ferment. And the way they do it is they use the grapes, the leaves, and the stems. They put all of it inside and they let it ferment. And then once in a while, they'll use a big, a bark of a tree or a stick to just turn it around, move it around, and then they leave it in. It ferments on its own. Then, whenever it's ready, after a few months or whatever, they will pull it out and they don't really filter it so much. So, if you're buying Georgian wine, she did warn me that if you're buying a wine made in a quarry, then be prepared for some, it won't be absolutely clear. So be
So would
ready
it
for
would
that.
it be like a pulpy wine? Would
So
you
it's thicker,
class?
it
Yeah.
seems. I didn't really get a chance to try the query wine there somehow, but I did bring a bottle home so we can open it one day. And she said, leave it out half an hour to breathe. Like really leave it out to breathe because it's very strong. And alcohol percent, I think, is on the higher side, is what they mentioned. Of course, a lot of Georgia now produces wine in the modern way as well with the cylinders. But most wineries will have both production ways. And how do you recognize if a wine is made in the quarry? Is that on the bottle there is a sign of the quarry. So if there is a sign of the quarry, it means it's Georgian produced wine in a quarry. They also told me that most of this wine is dry wine because they don't add any sugars. They add nothing to it. So it's the purest wine that you can find. And then they have semi-sweet varieties where they would remove it from that and then add it. And then of course the rest of the new style is there. One thing that was interesting was I was at this place called Chateau Mukarani, which is a beautiful chateau. You can go for wine tasting out there, and I would really recommend that. It beautiful place. You can even go have lunch out there and a tour of the palace and everything. And she was very enthusiastic and passionate about Georgian wine when she was showing me. And she said, you know, if you go back in history, two things to remember. Whenever, if you doubt a person serving you wine, doubtful it'll happen today, but in those times it did happen. Always have it in a silver glass. And I
Why
said,
is
why?
that?
Because if it's poisoned, silver will change color. So that's why all the wine glasses in old times were in silver. So you knew when you're visiting king to king or whatever, if the person is trying to poison you, it would show off. The second thing she told me is that everybody, almost everybody in Georgia, has a winery back home. So everyone's backyard, they are growing wine. And I saw this when I was traveling. I had like a road that I took in was a smaller road, and literally there's like grapes growing in everyone's house, and everyone's making wine. And she said, you know, when people you have to clean the quarry, so the person who gets in really enjoys it because he or she is sniffing the wine, and this girl's sister was doing it. She said the only thing we tell her is keep singing because it's so strong that you can become drowsy and faint inside the quarry because these are like giant 6-7 feet high quarries.
Yeah.
So you can actually fall inside there. So I thought that was quite interesting to see how they're making. And that's what I saw, Neil. Georgians are very passionate, very sweet, warm, welcoming, simple people, but very passionate about their culture and their history.
I think, given that you've told us this, it is probably right to put it that one thing that you could get for your friends and family from Georgia is not duty free alcohol, but actually wine from
Yes,
Georgia.
buy wine from Georgia. Try and buy it in the shops because duty free in Georgia apparently is more expensive than the shops in the city. So if you can buy one in the shops, and if you want to be really something which you can't get elsewhere, then buy the amber wine, which is nothing but a white wine. It's made from the white, but it's more orange in color. Worldwide, it is known as orange wine, but the Georgians don't like to call it orange wine, and I think amber sounds better. So, an amber wine would be a perfect gift or a query wine, whatever you want.
I guess, listeners and viewers, this is a proper tip that Sunila has given us. If you're in Georgia, don't go for the duty free alcohol if you're planning on buying alcohol. Well, consumption of alcohol is injurious to health, so drink responsibly, I will say. But if you're buying wine, buy it in the local shops. That would be cheap on the pocket also, and you'll probably get better wine. So, we've discussed wine, and one of the things is going for wine tastings. But can you do day trips from Tbilisi?
Yes, you can. So you can go to one I mentioned was Kakheti. So that
Yeah.
is a winemaking region you would go to. On the way when you're going, usually they like to stop at these small places where people, each home also on the way in the villages, they also cook their own bread and they sell it. So it's like on a Sunday, the locals like to go there, buy the bread and come. And I saw the bread making process very similar to a tandoor, very similar to a naan. And that lady was making the bread, putting it on the tandoor, bending down herself. Like I thought she'll fall down to take it off. And then they are selling farm, fresh eggs and cheese and bread. So that's something you just see it. And then you reach Kakheti, you can go around, go to the wineries, see wine production, do wine tasting, have a meal there. Go to Signagi on the same trip. And Signagi, by the way, is called the City of Love because uh, at the city hall, you can get married there 24 by 7 at any time. And that is why it's called the City of Love. I enjoyed the walking tour. We walked by the city, but you can also have a golf cart kind of thing,
Yeah.
electrical or motor. So if you don't want to walk, you can do that. But there was a World War II monument, and then when we went ahead, a fortress that you can just walk across with beautiful views. So it's a nice day out. So that is one excursion. The second one I mentioned was Kazbegi. But if you can, then definitely stay at Kazbegi because the views and the it's amazing. So when Tbilisi was 25 degrees, Kazbegi was 16. So, I was so happy and glad that I had a jacket. And I think that's my next tip is carry a rain-proof jacket, if even if it's light, wherever you go, because it saves you, literally. So in 1 minute it was raining, the other minute it stopped. But you just needed that light one layer, and I was happy I had my jacket there. At Kazbegi, you can visit the Trinity Church of Gergeti, and this is again high on top of a mountain. If you're in a big coach, the big coaches stop and you're transferred to like how you go in Dubai Safari. Similarly, they have these cars with huge wheels which can take you up the mountain, or you can trek. You can also go trekking out there and you can visit that. So Kazbegi is another one. And on the way, you can stop in Godavari. I mentioned Godavari. You
Yeah.
can ski, paragliding, and all of that. And on the way, you can actually even do whitewater rafting and you can do four-wheel driving. So it's like the whole adventure part. So I would say stay in Godavari or Kazbegi if you want to do all of this. If not, yes, do it in a day. There's also a Ananauri fortress that you can visit on the way. And right next to it is this huge reservoir which serves, which supplies water to Tbilisi. So it's really pretty. You can go boating there. There's a little beach there and all of that. So by the lake, you can wait, you can see. So it was quite interesting. It's nice. And one more thing I noticed, Neil, like probably because it was summer, in every place, along with like small souvenirs that they sell, there were fresh fruits. Like it was just amazing. Like I think my one meal was just fruits, berries and strawberries and apricots and all kinds of summer fruits, also mixed and stuff. So it was a really nice trip. So those are two day trips from Tbilisi. The third one could be, it's not really much of a day trip, but you can make one, is Kheta. So Meskheta was the old capital before Tbilisi became the capital, and there's a story to that. But you can go to Skheta, and then from there you can go to Gauri. Gauri is like, again, old town. And Skheta was where Christianity came to Georgia. So Saint Nino, she came from Cappadocia and she brought Christianity with her. She converted the king. She put a cross on the church and they built a monastery there, which is Jwari Monastery. So again, that's one of the sites that you would want to go and visit. It's quite nice. It's beautiful. And when you're standing by Jwari Monastery, you have view of entire Skheta town. And that's where the river, two forks of the river combined to become one. So it's a beautiful place. Skheta is a UNESCO heritage site as well, and also known as the Holy City because that's where Christianity started there. So you can kind of combine Gori and Skheta together and come back to Tbilisi if you're not going ahead to Batumi. And then Shatumukhrani is on the way, so you can add another wine tasting out there as well. So yeah, you can do like three, four, and there are more, but these are at least the three main ones that you can do if you want to step out of Tbilisi.
Do you think we've missed out on anything?
If you're in Batumi, you can extend into a lot of canyons out there. So there are it's like nature has blessed them. And in and around Batumi, say about 2 hours to 3 hours from Batumi, you'll find different canyons, different national parks. So if you want to go trekking, if you want to go and do all of those things, the national parks and are the best. So I went to Martvili Canyon on the way. And I was shocked, Neil. It was open till 12 in the night. I have not come across anywhere else in the world where a
But how would
sightseeing
a canyon be
attraction.
at night? Like,
It was all lit up.
ah,
So it was stunning. You can do zip lining till about 9 p.m. It's
okay.
summer now, so there was good light till 9 p.m. out there. So since I was doing a lot of inspections, I was really late by the time. I was supposed to reach there by afternoon, but I wanted to do a lot more than my itinerary permitted. And by the time I realized I'm going to reach her at 8:30, so I told the driver, I don't think we're going to make it. It's closed. Let's go straight to Batumi. But he was an enterprising person and he said, let me call them. And he said, no, they're open till 12. Let's go. And I said, okay. So when I reached there, she said the boat ride and the zip lining. There's a nice boat ride that you can do, small, but it's nice. It takes you through the canyon in the river. You can do zip lining. All of that shuts down by 9, but the canyon to walk around was open till 12. And I took a nice walk and it's beautifully lit up, boardwalks and stuff like that. So you can spend some time out there. I've never come across anything else in the world. No attraction that's open this late.
Open this late, right? I guess that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So I think let's end the episode on this. We've done a deep dive in Georgia. I would say to the listeners and viewers who've stuck with us all through this episode, my checklist, probably Sunila mentioned a lot of things. There's a boat ride, there's a beach, there's a cable car, there's skiing, there's river rafting. If you want to snowboard, you can snowboard. You can go check out canyons. You can go check out fortresses. You can go onto a river. You can check out a bridge. If you like trekking, there's a lot to do. So I think Georgia
And
does
food.
and food, right?
And
Food
food.
and who can miss out the wine, because the wine
Yes.
is differently textured and
Yeah.
people grow it in their backyard. So that's a lot of stuff to take away from this episode. Thanks a lot, Sunila, for this deep dive. Everyone, thank you for tuning in to Travel Explore Celebrate Life this week. We hope we have put Georgia on your bucket list. Sunila has ticked it off. Probably Sunila's 93rd or 94th country as she closes in on 100. And when I go in October, I'll probably tick it off as my 43rd or 44th country. How many countries have you visited? Have you hit 50 countries? Have you hit 75 countries? Or are you just starting out? Tell us in the comments below or writing to either of us. My email ID is neil, Neil, @vinaworld.com. Sunila's is sunila @vinaworld.com. We would love to hear from you. And if you have any feedback about our podcast, or if you want us to take any special topic, please let us know, because this community has to keep growing. And thank you for showering us with all of your love over the last 2 years of Travel Explore Celebrate Life. We will see you next week with another fun episode. Until then, keep celebrating life. Bye.